A young person is not going to pretend that you're not going to be blamed. I am in Canada. I'm someone the government doesn't like. But sometimes if I say something, some people, whether they're from the Equatorians or from the Nuer tribe or any tribe, would still blame me because they say I am part of, because I'm Jin. I'm not going to say, oh, what you're saying is just nonsense. I have to listen to them and let them understand without dismissing them. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to KuirthiyTV. So this video is about the arrest of Dr. Riek Machar and the implications of that. I know many people are sort of excited about his arrest because they see him as the embodiment of what is wrong with South Sudan, that if he's out of the political scene in South Sudan, then everything would be okay. Some people lament this, and they see this as sort of a machination by the Jing elite who do not want him to be in power for whatever reason. So I'm going to go through a number of things. Some of them are things you already know. Some of them are just fallacies that are engineered by people who don't really care about what happens to the average person. So let's see what these things are. The first is something that came up during the funeral of late Majur Dak, who was killed in Nasser. And some of these army leaders and politicians were saying that there are two armies in the country and they should not be two armies. Now that sounds reasonable on face value, but then you have to ask yourself, why do we have two armies? Then you all know that we had an agreement that ended the civil war in South Sudan. So that's why we have two armies. The only way these two armies will be gone is if the revitalized peace agreement, which was signed in 2015 as the agreement for the resolution of conflict in South Sudan, signed in 2015, but then it was revitalized again in 2018. So if that is not finalized and brought to a logical conclusion, then you will always have two armies. So that was one of the problems they were complaining about. Why they were complaining when they already know why we have two armies? That's something I don't understand. And they all know this. So when they talk as if they don't know why we have two armies, that is dishonest. Then we also have this issue of two commanders in chief, Riek Machar and then President Kiir. So they're also saying the same thing, that we shouldn't have two commanders who are leading two armies in the same country. As Dr. Riek Guy said during the funeral, that it's like we have two sovereignties, but that is dishonest. So the agreement was meant to end the war peacefully, and then after the conclusion of the agreement, the two armies are sort of integrated. So that's what they were trying to do. But if you're asking why do we have two armies when you know the agreement has not been conclusively ended, then I don't know what you're talking about. Then you are part of the problem. You cannot ask something you already know. It's like insulting South Sudanese, insulting the intelligence of South Sudanese. That's not something you should do. South Sudanese are very intelligent. They know what is happening. You cannot ask why do we have two CNCs when you know we have SPLM-IO, that's the signatory to the agreement. We have the SPLM in government that has somehow assumed the ownership of the national army. So that SSPDF is somehow seemed to be under the leadership of President Kiir, and SPLM-IO under the leadership of Riek Machar. The problem is because they have not integrated the two armies. During the CPA, we had the same scenario. We had the SPLA, we have the Sudanese Armed Forces. So, if Sudan had been united, then the SPLA, which is now SSPDF, would have been integrated into the Sudanese army. So why are these people asking questions that are very obvious? This shows that the problem is coming from them. They are engineering the problem, asking questions they already know, trying to build a narrative that they think our people will not be able to see through. Now then we have the arrest of Riek Machar. Now for some people this is all but overdue. But is it a solution to our problems? When we were in Sudan during the Anyanya War, and then the war was ended in 1972. Between 1972 and 1983, South Sudanese had a scapegoat. So many people in South Sudan thought the Jing, or as they say, Dinka, were the scapegoat. So the Dinka were the scapegoat, Abela Lear was a scapegoat. So it was seen as the problem. That was a scapegoat. Now, when the SPLA war started in 1983, and then people went to the bush, the scapegoat became who? The Nuer and the Sudanese army, especially the elite in Khartoum. Those people became the scapegoat. So when the agreement was signed, comprehensive peace agreement was signed between SPLM, SPLA, and the Sudanese army under Omar al-Bashir, the scapegoat, after the agreement was signed, especially during the interim period between 2005 and 2011, the scapegoat was the NCP under Omar al-Bashir, former president of Sudan. So the National Congress Party, formerly the NIF, it was formerly the National Islamic Front, but because of U.S. war on terror, Sudan wanted to dissociate with fundamental Islam. So they changed the party from National Islamic Front to National Congress Party. So as the SPLM and the National Congress Party tried to implement the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, South Sudanese saw Khartoum under Bashir as the scapegoat. Now, when South Sudan became independent in 2011, the scapegoat was gone. That's what Hilda Johnson said in her book, that the scapegoat has escaped. Now we had to create another scapegoat. So Riek Machar has become now the scapegoat, as if he's the one preventing the Kiir's government from paying salaries, as if Riek is the one preventing Kiir from building roads, making sure tribes unite. So I'm not saying Riek Machar is all this clean, that he's all this great leader. No, we all know. You can read works of his colleagues, people who rebelled with him in 1991, Lama Kol. He shows that Riek has leadership problems. The same thing, anytime he rebels, he's incapable of doing anything. He couldn't even help himself, and he was arrested in South Africa, detained. The same thing. The man with whom he's negotiating, he's implementing the agreement, could just arrest him like the way he's been arrested in his house. So Riek Machar is not a productive, effective leader. I know that. I don't think if he becomes president, he would be any better than Kiir Mayardit. I know he's not likely to kill people, although he's done that in the past because of his inadequacies. But I don't think he's exceptionally better than the rest of the SPLM. But he has shown now that he's willing to negotiate, he's willing to implement the agreement. So we can remove Riek from the scene, make him retire, become a civilian. But another scapegoat will come up. Another scapegoat will come up. So let us not use scapegoating as a solution. It's just stale. It's bad, because we'll always create another excuse. So it's better to find a solution rather than to use individuals as excuses. So, and here's something about violations. SPLMIO officials have told us several times that the agreement is being violated by SPLMIG. Were we listening? So the agreement said that some ministries were allocated to SPLMIO. So if Kiir is to remove any of these officials, he has to consult Riek Machar and SPLMIO officials. But it doesn't. He removed Defense Minister Angelina Tang And then Lomoro and the rest of the SPLMIG try to create an excuse. It's a violation. Simple. Whatever excuse you're trying to use, it was a violation. But it's now understandable because Kiir wanted to use the army to be under him. Now you know what is happening in Nasser and what is happening because the defense minister is supposed to be from his side. We now know why he did that. We now know what other things he did. The sacking of SPLM IO governor in Upper Nile and then putting someone who is affiliated with him. So these are violations. They don't conduce to the peace we want in South Sudan. So when Bolomil says we want peace, all the things SPLM IG is doing do not show us they actually want peace. If there's a way in which you can remove Riek Machar without violating the agreement, without causing all these tensions, then use the SPLM-IO. Tell SPLM-IO that Riek Machar is somehow bad in some ways, and then it's the SPLM-IO to vote out Riek Machar as the party and put someone else. But it's not instigation, that is through violations of the agreement. Go online, see how many press conferences the SPLM-IO actually held in Juba, telling the people of South Sudan that Kiir is not serious about implementing the agreement. What was happening in our heads? Are we listening? Because the more we don't listen to this, is the more the country is led to a path that is not going to be conducive for anyone. Something I forgot to mention about the arrest of Riek. If people are arrested that way, then it sets a culture in which political dissent, political leaders can be arrested without any due process. Because we don't know what happened really in Nasser. We don't. We can pretend we know, but we cannot buy a narrative of people who are saying the things they're saying. So these violations should end. Now, we already know South Sudan is ethnically diverse, ethnically divided. Now, you cannot pretend that something you do to Riek Machar is not going to annoy Nuer people. That would be utopian. That would be sticking your head in the mud. We have a border. We have some national symbols, but we have not developed a strong sort of national consciousness that unites us. We're still internally divided. So the way to unite the country is not to act the way people are acting now. So we don't live in a utopia. I know many Jiang people are suffering. Jiang people are suffering, and even in Warab, they're suffering in Barakazal. Jiang people are being arrested. They're being killed by the same government. So someone who says this is a Jiang government, I'm not sure you're paying attention to what is happening. But because of the ethnic composition of the country, a Jiang person is not going to pretend that you're not going to be blamed. I am in Canada. I'm someone the government doesn't like. But sometimes if I say something, some people, whether they're from the Equatorians or from the Nuer tribe or any tribe, would still blame me because they say I am part of, because I'm Jiang. I'm not going to say, oh, what you're saying is just nonsense. I have to listen to them and let them understand without dismissing them. I know I'm not benefiting. So many Jiang people are not benefiting it, but you cannot say that people will not have that consciousness, the idea that Jiang is to blame. So we have to listen that if something happens to Riek Machar, there are many Nuer people who are going to get offended because they feel like it's an offense to them. You have to create a condition where you say, look, the problem is not Nuer, the problem is Riek Machar. And here is why the problem is Riek Machar. But when you say Riek Machar controls the army, White Army, ordered the White Army, that's an insult to us. It doesn't tell us much. Because we know there are so many lies that come from Juba. And even South Sudanese know. Now, that brings me to the Nuer and Jiang elites. These people are not part of any tribe because look at how they talk. Look at how the Nuer elite talk in Juba against Riek Machar. Look at how the Jing elite talk about issues. These people are after their own interests, their positions, and their wealth. They will protect it at every cost. So if you see Lol Garkwat, for example, or Taban Dengai, or Riek, these people cannot speak on behalf of their ethnic group because these are elites. They are after their own interest. Who wants to go into the bush? People like Lol Garkwat, they've become so comfortable in Juba. So do you think they want to run away? They don't want war. And they're not avoiding the war because they care about the Nuer people. No, they don't. They care about their bottom line. Because if they run to the bush, the hotels they sleep in, the wealth they've accumulated, it will just be destroyed and they will not be able to get that in the bush. No one wants to fight. So when you see Nuer elite talking against Riek Machar, do not buy that. Do not take it at face value that, now Riek is the problem. Be smart. Now, I'm not saying Riek Machar shouldn't go, because I want Riek to go, because Riek has been, he has overshadowed many, many Nuer leaders. So it will be difficult for any Nuer leader to come up, to be known, as long as Riek is there. Because Riek has become not an individual, but has become an institution. So anyone who is lying that you cannot just arrest Riek Machar and everything will be okay, you're not paying attention. You don't know the realities of ethnicity and politics. Riek has become bigger than who he is. So it's not about him as an individual. We know he's a weak leader. But what he symbolizes to many of his supporters is bigger than that. So you cannot just throw him away like that. That's not going to work. So we have to pay attention as to what the arrest of Riek Machar means and the power it may give to some Jeng elites and Nuer elites to say, okay, this is how you do things. If you disagree with someone, put him in jail, blow house. We need to to have a political culture where if you disagree with someone, sit. Why can't Kir Mayadit and Riek Machar sit as brothers and sisters? Because this is their country. Why do they always need foreigners to come and make them reconcile? That's our problem as South Sudanese. Why can't they sit and say, these are our people, can we decide what happens to them? Now it has to take Raila, it has to take Ruto, it has to take the AU, it has to take the Troika countries, it has to take all the other diplomatic leaders in the country to say, please, de-escalate, think about your people. So when Kiir commissioned the national dialogue, he promised that he would abide by the findings. Then these eminent South Sudanese, these statesmen, very experienced people who care about the country, they came out and said, this is what the people have said. Riek Machar and Kir Mayadit should go for the country to be peaceful. Did Kir say, oh, you know what, Riek, this is what our people say, can we go? If Kir had listened and tells Riek, look, this is what our people say, for the sake of our country and our people, let us go. Do you think what is happening now would happen? So let us not pretend that it is Riek Machar who is the problem. Why didn't Kir leave by then and convince Riek Machar? Now, there's a problem with many Jeng elite where they lie a lot. They said, first when Kir Mayadit came out and credit to the president, it was a good thing. I think it made a lot of difference for them to come out and say, look, calm down. That was good. I wished he had come out with Riek Machar. It would have made a lot of difference. But credit to him. But here's the problem. He lied about the helicopters. He had to be corrected by the United Nations. And then later on they corrected themselves. Secondly, when the news people and rumors went around saying the UPDF are in the country, what did the spokesperson, Makwe, say? He denied it and accused people of being, enemy of the state, warmongers. And then later on, he admitted that it was true. There were rumors Riek Machar has been put under house arrest and his house was surrounded. He denies it, and they deny it. Now we know it's true. There's so many things that are happening. How can we trust people like that? When you deny something and then later on you accept it. So my point is, the arrest of Riek Machar is not the solution. It is the dialogue that is the solution, and the agreement peacefully, and then the two armies will be gone. Only the president will be the commander-in-chief. But as long as you don't end the agreement, which you keep on postponing, why did you postpone it? And then you accept to postpone it. How many times? Twice now. So you knew there was something to be implemented. That's why you kept on postponing it. Implement the agreement, sit with Riek Machar, end the agreement peacefully, and then things may be okay. Thanks. Please, if you like this video, do not forget to subscribe and also share it. Comment. If you have any comment, if there's a topic you want me to address, please let me know. Thank you.